Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the show. This is Reservations, and I'm Jeremy Blair.
And I'm Rain Wayland. So, I remember what it was. Do you want to know what it was?
Yeah.
Jeremy, Evil Dies Tonight.
Oh my god.
I was watching the pitch meetings. They did a compilation of like the spookiest pitch meetings, and they started with fucking Halloween Kills, and he does the whole like Evil Dies Tonight. And like, what? Why are you saying that? Like, oh, that's gonna be like the running theme, just people saying the evil dies tonight. And then he goes on a little bit more with the pitch, and then he's like, and then he's gonna be like, evil dies tonight. And I'm like, because sidebar, I remember when Ashley and I saw that movie, that didn't bother me as much. What bothered me was the drastic change in writing. How the reboot Halloween was so good, the writing was so tight, and then Halloween Kills just was like,
that's what I've heard. I've heard the first one's really good. I haven't seen any of the new ones.
It's truly, the first one's so good. Like they really took what John Carpenter did with the original Halloween and elevated it with tension, a little bit of comedy, but it's so good. And then Danny McBride, because Danny McBride wrote the scripts. He had it, right? He had the template, and he was like, okay.
Evil Dies Tonight.
All right,
here we go.
Evil Dies Tonight, and I'm going to sideline Laurie Strode for the whole fucking movie.
What if the whole town just magically knew everything about what was going on? And let's rope them in all of it,
Well, and then we never saw Halloween Ends because we were so disappointed with Halloween Kills. I didn't know that they completely shifted the focus off of Michael Myers. But then, like, all the marketing was like, oh yeah, Laurie Strode and Michael Myers final showdown. And it's like, in the pitch meeting, they're like, yeah, but we're gonna focus on this guy Corey. He's gonna be our main character.
It's a weird choice, like, I don't know. Like, it's not what you expect.
Well, and look, no offense to David Gordon Green, okay? Like,
No
he's
offense.
he's given us some good movies. But even his Exorcist sequel reboot,
heard it was bad.
Didn't land very well either.
I mean, but I can't say I didn't see it, so I don't know. But
well, you did see a sequel that apparently did land really, really well.
I did. Over the weekend, I saw Terrifier 3, and that movie's nuts, man. It's so good. I don't know. Here's what's so crazy about these movies is, so the first one, sleeper, right? People are like, whoa, there's the scene in it that's absolutely insane. It's crazy, right? The concept is there, but it was kind of boring up until the last few minutes. The second one comes out, blows everyone's mind. It's more well paced. It's way longer. There's lore. There's we have a potential new hero that's going to come and try to save the day. Blah blah. It's a different take on a slasher movie, and the kills and the blood and gore was amped up so much. And then it's like, okay, this one got really popular. When I tell you that the theater I went to was pretty packed, and there were like middle-aged women going to like this movie has bridged the gap between people like me who just are, I'm in it for the blood and guts, I'm in it for the the shock value, I'm in it for, let's see how far they can take it and let's see how much they can amp it up, to people who don't seem like they would be into that sort of thing. But no one left, no one vomited or fainted that I saw, although I believe the stories people tell. They're like, people vomited in the theater. I believe that.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it was amped up more than the second one. Again, we're getting a little bit more lore. We're getting a little bit more of this dynamic between this hero and this villain, where, yeah, and it's it's pretty grotesque, which is why I'm so surprised that it's pretty mainstream at this point, and it's probably the most violent movie I've ever seen. So
Yeah, we were talking, messaging each other at work about it. I find it so fascinating that the first movie, like you said, like didn't land very well, but then critics, when the second one came, the critics were like, "Oh my god,
yeah,
this is
yeah,
this is amazing." I was telling mom about it this morning, and I told her how the first one is like rotten 55. She was like, "Okay, so that means 45% of people liked it." I was like, "Yeah."
essentially.
And, and then I was like, but then we get to the sequel. She was like, "Oh my god, there was a sequel?" And I was like, "Yeah." And when I told her it was certified fresh, 86%, she was like, "What?"
Yeah, yeah, nuts.
It's like,
And now this
yeah.
third one, okay. If you're listening to this in the future, it is October 2024. Okay, it is opening weekend for Terrifier 3. It is going to beat Joker 2 in the box office, like, by a long shot. It's going to beat Joker so bad in the box, which is so crazy to me. Again, because Terrifier is not, these aren't movies for everybody. But, I mean, you know, people who go to see
um,
it love it. I mean, it's so much fun. To me, it's so over the top. It is so gory. It is so violent that you can you can compartmentalize. You can be like, this is obviously not real, right?
yeah.
So I think that's where the fun comes, because it's just like, what's going to be the next way he's going to kill someone? I mean, it's nuts.
Well, and like, I think I am gonna finally sit and watch these because of two examples. My buddy Quentin showed me a scene where Art is trying to kill this girl, and he's got her by the back of the head because she's crawled through, this little opening,
Mhm.
and he rips out some of her hair, and then he just randomly sticks his hand through the hole and is just honking his like bike horn at her, and like he's like, "Isn't that insane?" I'm like, "I guess."
It is
And
insane.
then today I saw the scene. I'm assuming it's from the second one, where he's trying on different
Yeah,
glasses
that's
at
in the second one.
the costume shop, and I'm assuming the girl he's taunting is our hero or a
Yes,
heroine,
yeah, she's a
and
heroine.
he's just like messing with her, and like, so
Dude,
I'm like, ugh,
there's a
I'm like, I
scene
guess
in
I'm
the
gonna have to
third.
watch.
There's a scene in the third one that is so funny. There's a guy dressed as Santa at a bar,
Uh-huh.
and he walks by the window, and he walks by, and then he doubles back and looks, and he is so excited that Santa is at the bar, and he can't get over it. He goes, "Oh my god." And he doesn't talk. And so he points at him, and then he points to a picture of Santa on the wall. He goes, "That's you." Like, I mean, it's the silliest thing, but you don't expect him to just light up, with the excitement that it's Santa. Holy Jesus, man. Oh, and it's a Christmas
uh,
movie, so this is a good one for the holidays, for tradition, moving forward. Um, but again,
uh,
some of the grossest stuff you'll ever see is in this movie. At least for mainstream film, it's nuts.
well, one thing I'll say before we move on, I was watching an interview of the actor who plays Art
Yeah.
the Clown, and they ask him, like when you auditioned for the director's name is Damien, right?
Mhm.
Okay. They're like, when you auditioned for Damien and you got the part and you got the script, like, like what are you feeling like signing up for a movie like this? And he was like, he was honest. He was like, I thought it was a little strange that there was such, violent stuff in the script. And he was like, and I asked Damien about the now infamous hacksaw scene, and that's how he
Mhm.
said it.
Yeah.
And he's like, and I remember telling him like, hey, we're not actually gonna like show this, right? Like, and he's like, and Damien looked at me, he's like, yeah, no, we're showing it all.
Yeah.
And he was just kind of like, cool.
Cool. Okay.
Cool,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I mean, these movies are the antithesis of, okay, well, they'll just cut away from that, right? Nope.
No.
Nope, they never will. Uh, so, yeah, they're so much fun to watch if you like that sort of thing. If you don't, obviously it's not for you. If you're in it for the plot, there is one. Again, we're building on it. We're building on lore and we're building on explanations and continuations of stories and whatever. It's there. Is it a little thin? Sure. But it's fun. These are fun. So go see the
No.
Terrifier movies, man. They're great. I really enjoy them.
Oh. I love that we just spent probably a good 10 minutes
Well, yeah,
opening
but
the show with that.
it's important. It's important to talk about Terrifier and how it's
Well,
going to be. I mean, these movies will last a while. This isn't going to be something that people will forget about in a few years. Terrifier is going to be one of those iconic.
Are you saying it's going to be our generation's like The Thing?
Maybe well, I don't think that maybe not The Thing. The Thing is, it's got a little bit more it's got a little bit more nuance, a little bit more, I don't know, sophistication perhaps. However,
Okay, let me rephrase. It's going to be our generation's oh shit.
Like he's like Art the Clown is like Freddy Krueger for generation like Z. Like Gen Z, this is their Freddy Krueger.
Okay.
That's what that's how I would do it. That's how I'd put it. Even though it's not just for the younger, I mean, everyone loves it, obviously. I mean, again, a mom was there with her teenage son last night. Okay.
Well, one more thing I'll add. That band I really like, Ice Nine Kills, just did a collab with them, which I showed you before we got started. Because I remember texting you when the song came out, and I was like, I mean, from a music standpoint, it's a good song, but I'm not getting any of these references.
Yeah. There's quite a few, so it was cool. It was a fun video.
Yeah. Anyway, with that being said, I guess we should probably.
If you skip this far, we're on to our intro of the movie that we're going to be talking about.
Yes. Welcome back, everyone. This week was my pick, and I picked the 1995 psychological horror drama film Safe. Now, this was a first watch for me, but you said you'd seen it before.
I might as well have never heard of this movie before, because I have seen it before. I remember but like watching it again, I was like, oh, I think I do remember that, and I do remember that. I think I may have saw it when I was like maybe 18, 19, somewhere around there. I can guarantee you, 18-year-old me
didn't get it.
Would have thought this is the dullest film marketed as a thriller ever, right? I would have thought, I'm sure I thought, this is boring. I don't get it. People keep talking about it as a psychological thriller and as, a scary concept. I'm like, I'm just not getting it. I remember being intrigued by the poster. I'm sure it's the one we're using, which is with Lester on the cover. And I go, that looks kind of creepy. And I read about it and I go, oh, that sounds interesting, whatever. I found it somewhere. And yeah, watching it, I was like, that's not what I was expecting at all. But now, however,
I was going to say, now that you're a 31-year-old man who's lived through a pandemic.
Yeah, now, however, I get it, and there's a lot to discuss. Todd Haynes has left a lot of room for interpretation and discussion, which is very much appreciated. So,
yeah.
We want to go ahead and hit him with that quick synopsis, and then we'll get started.
Yes, I will do the best I can
Yeah.
because there's a lot to ground to cover.
Yeah.
It's 87, right, in the film?
Hmm.
Yeah, okay. So our film takes place in it's San Bernardo, right?
San Bernardino? San Fernando
Sure.
Valley? I don't remember what they said.
California.
California.
Our film takes place in California in 1987. We are following housewife Carol White, played so brilliantly by Julianne Moore. Carol is your typical stay-at-home mom. She gardens. She runs errands for the home for Greg, her husband, and dishes with the other fellow housewives and things like that. But then one day, Carol starts to not feel very good. She's starting to cough more when she goes out. She gets a nosebleed when she goes and gets her hair permed at the beauty shop. And she's just noticing, something's going on. She's got a headache and she goes to the doctor. Doctor tells her that she's perfectly healthy, that maybe it's just, some asthma or, something like that. But Carol starts to get worse and worse. She can't breathe while at a baby shower. She passes out completely. And I just skipped ahead a little bit, but just to prove how worse it's getting, she passes out completely at her dry cleaners and starts to convulse. And she's trying to do everything she can to figure it out. Greg, her husband, is sort of playing along. Just, she says she needs this. Okay, I'll do what I can. Ultimately culminating in Carol going to a commune, essentially in, I literally fucking watched this movie today and I can't remember the settings.
I think it's in Arizona. I think that's where they're.
Yeah. Commune in Arizona. That's all about what she's experiencing, which is environmental illness, and that's kind of the movie. The movie has sort of the movie does have sort of an ambiguous ending, so there's no way I can tell you how it ends because honestly, that's up to us to decide how it ends. Carol doesn't necessarily get better, but she doesn't necessarily get worse either. So,
Yeah.
So Jerry, where would you like to begin with this sort of kind of monolithic task I've put us on?
Well, you were right at the beginning. Julianne Moore gives an incredible performance. So much so that, she completely sells, being such a timid, shy, meek, reserved, just almost bland woman. She's, she is, she's so weak.
Yeah.
I felt, especially at the beginning, I just felt that she's just, there, which is crazy because 2 years after this, she's in Boogie Nights and she is incredible and completely different.
Yeah.
In Boogie Nights, I don't remember when she was in Shortcuts, but she's in a movie called Shortcuts, and she is the exact opposite of that in that as well. So, and it's an early performance from Julianne Moore, and so you get to see the kind of powerhouse she is on screen. So
yeah, but no, I agree with that because after I finished the movie, I read a little bit more about kind of Carol, and I liked what I found, which is her marriage and family life appear stable but sterile, and her friends are polite but distant.
Yes, the way the film is shot, almost every frame of film she is in, it's sort of a long shot or it's a medium shot. It's never really close to her, not necessarily. She feels very isolated. She feels very alone in the environment she's in always.
Mm-hmm.
Especially the shots like of her gardening. We're filming it from so far away.
Mm-hmm.
And she just seems so small compared to the larger world around her. Which I liked. It did play on her just becoming so distant from everyone else and so isolated from everyone else. And yeah, that I like that that description, because it's almost it feels like her life is happening to her, not that she's, doing anything to live a life, right? It seems like her life is just happening.
Mm-hmm.
Now, Roger Ebert pointed out that I didn't catch the first time or the second time watching this, is that there's almost an ever-present hum in the soundtrack during most of the movie, which I really liked. That he pointed that out, because that's really cool, and I didn't really notice that before. And it's really this sort of looming, malevolent presence of something.
Yeah.
Is it the environment? Is it the chemicals? Is it the industrial world she's living in? Is it all in her head? We don't know. And that's what's so interesting about this movie, is that there really is no wrong answer, except I saw on the IMDb trivia someone had put that it is an allegory for the AIDS crisis, and I don't think that's true, because they mention AIDS in the movie. So if they explicitly mention AIDS, so there's no way, because that's a bad allegory. It's a bad analogy. If you're mentioning the thing that you're wanting to emulate, then it's not going to work. So I don't believe that.
Well, here's the other problem with that. Hang on. Even Criterion mentioned on the back of Safe that it's a metaphor for AIDS.
See, but I don't think so. Only because they mention AIDS.
Well, but see, Criterion says metaphor, not allegory.
Well, I know.
So,
well, okay, and I do understand the metaphor, because it's this dangerous, scary disease that you don't know what it is. You don't know what it is. You don't know how to stop it. You don't know where it's coming from, how it started, which at that time was the AIDS crisis. So I get that. But I think that's kind of where it ends, because I think most of all, it could be a metaphor or an indictment of modern day living, of maybe the world is innovating and expanding and getting better and getting faster too fast. It's the world is evolving too quickly for humans to catch up. Is what the cult thinks. So, which I found fascinating, because it's an illness of the sensitivity of the modern world, which they explicitly say in the movie, which is really interesting, and you can't prove it isn't.
Yeah.
Which, again, Julianne Moore, Carol is struggling so much that, even the people who love her, that's in quotes, the people who are in her life are kind of like us, the audience. We aren't sure if this is legitimate. Like, I don't know if it's all in her head. I kind of at times do think it's all in her head. But then when she's convulsing on the floor, and she does show signs of physical, like there's physical harm. Like she has like scabs, which is an AIDS thing. She has scabs. Her skin looks terrible. Her she looks weaker, but of course that could be she's just not eating or drinking water or anything because of this pretend illness that she has.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and then, of course, what got me interested in the movie in the first place, you have the example of Lester, who I believe is a ghost of the future, the ghost of Christmas future for Carol,
Uh-huh.
because she's already declining so much that she needs an isolation pod at the end of the film.
Mm-hmm.
People who have been there way longer don't need that. And so she's declining at a more rapid rate. She feels that she needs that isolation pod. And eventually, I believe she's going to end up like Lester, who is afraid to breathe the air.
Yeah, I was trying to do a little bit more digging about the movie because, yeah, I did read that the ending was ambiguous and a lot of things were left open to interpretation. One thing I found that I really liked was um that it is a very feminist tale as well, because before she's with the cult, I'm just gonna say cult now, not commune, because it really is a cult. um she the so they're saying it's very feminist because before then she's in a very male dominated world. Her husband, I'm gonna be honest, Greg, is kind of a piece of shit. um like, you can tell he's kind of fishing to have sex with her after she gets a perm.
Yeah.
And when she tells him that, like, she's got a headache, he has a complete meltdown, like a little crybaby bitch.
Yeah.
Her stepson Rory, which shout out to Chauncey.
Yeah. Shout out to
Um,
Squints.
yeah, shout out to Squints. Which he's not credited in the movie, by the way.
Oh, shame.
Yeah. Anyway, but Rory, her stepson, is really disrespectful towards her. The only kind of solace she gets where she's not surrounded by men is with her friends, but like you mentioned, um, or like I mentioned at the top of the show, that they're distant. So, she doesn't really she feels isolated and everywhere. And then when she goes to the cult, they said that's another form of dominance, but not male dominance necessarily, but a dominance of these rules and these systems in place that the cult has put. So she traded in one domesticity for another, which could be why she feels like she's not getting better, because
Yes.
now the dominance is stricter than it was when she was at home.
That's not bad. And while you were talking about that, I thought of something, and literally just now. Okay, I didn't write this down, but it almost seems like, because I was thinking about the end, because I know we're skipping so much. We'll hang on.
We'll circle back. Yeah, we'll circle
So
back.
at the very end, she's looking at herself in the mirror, and she's saying that she loves what she sees. Right? She's,
Mm-hmm.
I love you. Right? She now has this sort of sense of self that she's never had before, and I'm starting to
Mm-hmm.
think that maybe the film might be this woman who has no identity.
Mm-hmm.
Which is why she's so bland. I think she has no identity. Once she has an illness, she has something that differentiates her from everyone else. Therefore, she has a sense of self and sense of identity. She has something. She
Okay.
has she has something that separates her from everyone else, that gives her something special, and therefore she then now can love and appreciate herself because she has something new, something different, even though it's
Mm-hmm.
horrible, and potentially killing her. And I think maybe that's what that was at the end.
Maybe. I I like that too. I like that too because, you know, like you mentioned, there are times in the movie where it kind of looks like maybe this is all just in her head. You know, we're getting all these evident, you know, all these reports from these doctors that she's going to that she's perfectly healthy, that nothing is wrong. But then we see scenes with like that one doctor where he's testing her, um, the things that are triggering her,
Mhm.
and she has a reaction to something, you know, and he notices, okay, like you are experiencing something. Um, so it really is like, okay, like is it in her head or is it physical? Is it environmental? Like what is it?
Right.
Um, but again, I like what we like what you were just saying, you know, what Todd Hayes does, which is, you know, he doesn't give us a clear-cut answer of what's causing it. And I like that even Carol herself just keeps referring to it as, well, it's the chemicals that's doing this. It's the chemicals.
Yeah.
You know, we have a vague understanding because she has a vague understanding.
Well, and it's what she believes is causing all of it. It could be a
Mm-hmm.
coincidence. I mean, her going to get those allergy tests, which I've had done, by the way. It's usually on your back, not on your arm. And it is done like that, one needle at a time. Hurts real bad.
Oh, dude, fuck that.
She literally could just be allergic to that one thing. I don't remember what it was.
It was milk.
Milk. She could have a lactose intolerance. I don't know. She could be allergic to something else that's in milk. It could just be that at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Yet she has found something that has told her that it could be just the world around her.
Mm-hmm.
And she likes the idea of that. She thinks of it as that makes sense. I don't feel right when I'm out in the world. I don't feel quite like a sane or healthy person when I'm out in the world. Or she could be mistaking social anxiety for this. She could be mistaking depression for this.
You know, I was just
And
about to
just, you know,
say,
like everyone coughs when they're behind a truck with exhaust.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
yeah.
And
Well, and
her passenger window was open also, but
and I also just had the thought right before you said it that, you know, this could be the metaphor for mental health, you know, which is something they don't explicitly say in the movie, but like even with the cult, like when they're having one of their little, you know, their little powwow sessions,
Mhm.
and Nell says how she wanted to take a gun to anyone who did this to her, and Peter, um, which, dude, if this also isn't a sex cult, man, like, anyway, but you know, he was like, you know, and you know, we're the ones who do this, you know, and it felt very much like a sort of like a statement on mental health, and so it could be that, could be,
Yeah, she's just trying to make sense of all of it, and she found something that she goes, "I like that. That's a good explanation. That makes sense to me.
yeah,
Therefore, it must be what's happening to me, even though it sounds ridiculous.
mm-hmm.
You're allergic to modern society. That seems far fetched and it seems silly. But um, you know, I mean, here's something else. Here's some food for thought.
Give me okay.
And it's gonna sound like it's not gonna make sense, but I'll tie it in and it's gonna make sense.
Okay.
A person that I love online. His name is Jason Pargin.
Okay.
He is an author. He wrote John Dies at the End. Some people know that, but right. And he's great. He makes these videos that have been. I saw a person describe them as very esoteric. He just talks about fun, interesting things that tickles his brain. And he goes, have you ever thought about this, or do you find this strange, or I think this is strange, or I think this is interesting, and blah blah blah. He had
Mm-hmm.
one recently that I thought was really interesting, and that ties into this a little bit, which
Okay.
is there's two actually. One was there was a story that a dog, I forgot what kind of dog it was, a dog had ran away from this person's home. And after a while, they found the dog at this nearby farm or ranch
Mm-hmm.
herding animals. This
Okay.
specific dog was bred to do that. However, they had had this dog since it was a puppy. It doesn't know that it was bred to do that, but it instinctually did because, again, over hundreds of years of breeding this dog to herd animals, that's what it does. And that's what it wants to do. Now, the
Okay.
reason he brought this up was now that the dog knows that's what he wants to do and what he needs to do, he's never going to do it again because
Mm-hmm.
the owners don't own a farm, right? Or don't have a ranch. So
Mm-hmm.
is this dog always going to be wanting to do that, knowing that that's what he was supposed to be doing? So, meaning there was something instinctual in him that he didn't realize was there until he saw the opportunity to do so. Meaning, was he a little bit anxious all the time?
Okay.
So, can we prove the answer is no, but can we prove that there is something in us as humans that we don't do anymore because we don't have to do anymore that give us all just a little bit of maybe unperceived anxiety or tension or something because of our modern day living, because of our modern society, we're not doing anymore. And that once we find it, it'll click and we'll finally be like, oh, I can breathe. And I didn't even realize I wasn't breathing so well before.
Mm-hmm.
I think that has something to do with this presumed illness that Carol has, that this modern society is just too much for her, or it's too fast paced. Another example, it's a very modern example, is we are technically on call 24/7 all the time, right?
Mm-hmm.
Meaning, if someone messages you, texts you, whatever, you are kind of obligated to respond pretty fast,
Yeah.
right?
And
That's
if you
that's the social idea. That's the social construct that we are to respond to our friends or to our family or to whomever.
mm-hmm.
That's we've never been like this before as a society until very recently. And so it sort of brings on a sort of anxiety in people that are like, oh shit, my phone went off, I need to answer it, right? But 30 years ago, no. Like, hey man, I'll talk to you on the phone. I'll talk to you later. I'll see you later. You know?
Yeah.
Do I know when? No. But I wasn't obligated to always be available. So that's another reason why I kind of think there's validity to Carol's I think it's delusional illness.
Uh-huh.
The illness might be real. I think the explanation is wrong.
Okay.
But to her, it makes sense, and I can kind of wrap my head around where she's coming from because of those two examples I just gave.
Yeah. Yeah, it is. Yeah, I don't know if I like what they say in the movie itself. No, that's not to say I didn't enjoy the movie. I'd get that out of the way. When we're like halfway through the episode, I love the movie. I thought it was fantastic. I thought the writing was fantastic. I felt like Carol, essentially what you said, that she was just like, oh, that makes sense. That's the only thing that makes sense. And I would have wished for her to have probed more, but also I understand that the film is supposed to be 1987, so it makes sense that she wouldn't probe further, and that it's the environment around me which is causing this. Now I think personally, there's something more going on to Carol that Todd Hayes didn't say. I think there is some deeper layers, and I think he left that open for us, the audience, not necessarily to figure out, but to be like, okay, maybe there's a little bit of this or a little bit of that. Because I definitely think there is something mentally wrong with Carol. But I don't know what it could be.
From what I saw, it sounds like just it's severe anxiety or severe depression. I think that's what it is. Having that, it seemed like a panic attack at the
baby shower.
It makes sense that it would be a panic attack, because if she has such severe anxiety, and it's undiagnosed, she doesn't know what to look for, and so she doesn't know what it is, and so it's so scary because it comes out of nowhere for no reason. And that's terrifying. That's very scary, and there's no explanation for it unless you knew what it was. And I'm not an expert in what was socially known or what was considered to be like anxiety or depression or whatever in 1987, but perhaps maybe it wasn't as widely diagnosed as it is now. So
I mean, that's definitely true. Yeah, that's definitely true. Okay. I don't necessarily want to shift gears, but I do want to talk about this real quick. I love how Todd Hayes gives us Carol's world in California versus Arizona. You know, again, if California is meant to represent the actual environmental illness, so everything around her in California, of course, would be triggering everything. You know, how Greg and Rory are to her and how the world is in general. And then when she goes to Arizona, you know, things are a little bit calmer. Everyone is very, you know, calm with her, very gentle with her, especially Claire. It seems Claire really seems to have taking a liking to Carol. You know, and I like that we can kind of see that even at the cult, there is still some of that environmental illness that Todd was showing us back in California.
Yeah.
I just wanted to bring that up because I thought that was
and
really.
And what's also interesting is she should be getting better in Arizona, if that was the case. She's not. So, at least not to me. I didn't feel like she was getting. I felt like she was getting happier. More
that makes sense.
I feel like she was being more accepted. I think the thing about cults is that they love bomb you, and so when you first get there, and so everyone is of course so sweet and so polite and so understanding, and I think that's something that she's not used to. Greg is the farthest thing from understanding. Her stepson is terrible.
Rory's a little piece of shit.
Yeah. And her friends, of course, don't get it. Back in California, they don't understand. They are in their own worlds. They are doing their own thing. They're not necessarily narcissistic, but they really just don't have a lot of empathy. And so
Yeah.
They're really focused on their own lives, which is fair. But to a sort of like, very uppity, um, higher socioeconomics, little snooty sense.
And I'm glad you brought that up real quick, because I realized in doing some reading about it, a lot of people mentioned how there's this sort of metaphor on class in the
Mhm.
movie. I didn't pick up on it.
I didn't either
Did
because
you?
no, because everyone in her, unless I missed something, and she had just married Greg and she just became rich with him. Um, maybe I missed that because I felt that if it were a sort of a whatever indictment on class or a social criticism on class, I didn't see that because everyone's rich that she knows.
Yeah. The only
And
thing I could think of is maybe um that it's money that's not making her happy, and
well,
so
that's obvious.
going to the cult where they don't care about the money.
I don't know.
I didn't really pick up on that.
Well, and yeah, I mean it's pretty obvious. I think the stress of the stress of being so wealthy is there. It's a stress that I don't think people really dig these days. I don't think people really buy it nowadays because it's like, okay, you bought the wrong couch color. Whoop de doo, fucking cares. But it stresses her out. Um,
Yeah.
and that's sort of the point. Like the stress of this modern living, the stress of having to do all of these different things and having to keep track of all of these things and having it go wrong and having to go fix it and all this. I'm going to pick up the dry cleaning, going back to the furniture store, going and doing all this. It stresses her out, and I get that. Gardening, the renovations of the house, and all of that. It's very overwhelming.
Yeah. Now that you're saying all that, I'm like, you know what? Now this is making more sense. That it would be like what you just said, of it being undiagnosed and her not really knowing what to look for, know what to see. And so hearing the term environmental illness, and she's like, yeah, that's it. It's the chemicals. That's the only explanation.
Yeah,
Um,
she's just anxious.
yeah,
Perhaps. I,
perhaps, yeah.
I'll probably, there's a very low possibility that I'll meet Todd Haynes to ask him. So I guess I'll never know. But
You never know. You may bump into him one day.
that's a great point. Yeah, I might.
Next time you're in New York, I mean, I don't even know if he lives in New York.
Like, hey man, like I heard May December was good. I didn't see it. Anyway,
Yeah, let me Google real quick. Todd Hayes. Google, show me this guy's balls, please.
Yeah, Google.
But yeah, but I also like what you said about the ending of the film, of Carol, in a way, accepting herself for the first time, and loving this version of herself. Because that's something that Claire mentioned to her. That was the story that Claire told her, when it was kind of, Claire saying, like, this is when I decided I was going to start getting better. I told myself that I loved myself. And, and I like what you said. I think I think in terms of Claire's quote unquote arc, I think that's where her arc has finally kind of come full circle, which is she can learn to appreciate herself now. Now,
God.
I was just gonna say, but no, you go ahead, because
Well,
we,
yes, obviously, yes to all of that.
yeah,
I agree. I have in my notes. It's the only thing we really haven't touched on. I mean, I did a little bit, but not much. Is um is I can't get over the significance besides my hypothesis, but I want to understand the significance of Lester so bad because he's prominent enough to be on the poster. And like if he's in the marketing materials, if he's like on the cover of the DVDs, he's yet he has literally
No
maybe
dialogue.
10 seconds of screen time.
Yeah.
And we get an explanation of who he is, and that's it. Now, apart from him being perhaps maybe Carol's future, if she keeps it up, or if she continues to let her anxieties take over and win, basically letting, becoming more and more reserved, more and more scared, more quote sensitive to things around her. That's what she's going to end up being. A recluse and a someone who feels that they need to protect themselves from the environment. I think he's visually very interesting. And again, when I saw the poster for the movie and I saw what it was about, I go, "Oh, that's Julianne Moore. That's going to be really interesting. How did she get to that point?" And it's not. And so I was disappointed. And I was again reminded of my disappointment the second time that was not Carol in that garb.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that all Peter will say is Lester's just very afraid. And I think you're right. I think that's what eventually Carol will become if maybe something doesn't change, just in general. Not necessarily for Carol or Carol needs, but something in Carol's life or brain or something needs to change, and I think she will become like Lester. Now, can I say, I felt very bad for her with her speech at her birthday party, because the whole time I'm watching it, even though I was hearing it in my head, I was hearing that kid, the whole like, when you when you because she starts off really well and really elegant and really well spoken, and then it just rapidly devolves, and I was sitting there like, first of all, I'm sure all these people are like, what the fuck is she even talking about? And two,
go ahead.
Well, and I was gonna say, and two, I would say she's kind of not enabled, but Peter's the first one to kind of be like, like, yeah, here, like yeah, well said. And it's like, but she made no point. She just kind of,
her de-evolution of her speech is more of, she started getting, I felt she started getting excited about the fact that, I have something that I'm passionate about finally, and it's my illness. And so it's like, yeah, people are going to start to understand it. And people are going to, start to realize that this is a big deal and that this is real and that this is happening to me. Again, she's excited. She may not realize it at the time, but she is, almost giddy about the fact that she has a unique identity, that she, at least that's what I read. In that scene, that's how I perceived it. Again, this could all be wrong, which is fine.
Yeah, and I think that's one of the most interesting aspects about this movie, is that Todd Hayes leaves everything so ambiguous that literally anyone can interpret anything the way they need to. Which brings me to what I was going to ask you. Here's a question. do you think she will, Carol, do you think she'll eventually die?
Oh, like
Or do you think,
sooner than she should.
yeah,
Um,
or do you think she'll get better?
no, I think she's gonna let the illness
When?
become a part of her. Yeah,
Okay.
depend. You know, despite what I feel, you know, the illness not being real. I think that it's going to consume her, and I think she's going to let it happen, and I think she's going to be excited to let it happen. I think she feels that she is an advocate for this illness, because not everyone at this commune has the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
So you know, she has people there that are like-minded and that are understanding and empathetic, but they're not necessarily suffering the same way she is, which I thought was interesting. Um, so yeah, no, she's a goner. she's And I'll go even one step further. I'll say she'll never see Greg again, and she'll never see that kid again.
Yeah. Which is kind of disappointing because, you know, I felt like maybe at one point, Greg was going to try to be helpful, but
It's hard to tell with Greg because I'm looking at the IMDb synopsis of the movie calls
uh-huh.
Carol unexceptional, which I think is fine. And true. But I also feel that way about Greg. I think Greg is unexceptional. I think he is also nothing. He is just more. He's more well put together than Carol is. You know, he's more socially aware than Carol.
Mm-hmm.
Other than that, he's also very boring. So, um, but you're right. I felt like maybe he was trying, like, which means I guess he really does love Carol, because if he didn't, he wouldn't put up with any of this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it seems like he was trying to understand. I feel like, again, he is us, the audience, because I'm starting to, you know, doubt what's going on, and I'm starting to feel kind of weird about the people that she's associated herself with, and I'm starting to feel like maybe she's going down the wrong path. Like, this isn't the right way to fix whatever this is. Yet, you know, I feel obligated to support Carol also. It's like, if this is what you feel you need to do, go ahead. Like, that's.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know, man. I don't know. But again, like I said, I feel like everything is so ambiguous and everything is so open that it's, you know, it's easy to be like, well, maybe
Maybe,
or maybe not.
yeah,
But
maybe. Who knows? Um, I forgot who it was, but it was some prominent person called this the scariest movie of the year when this movie came out.
yeah, hang on. I think I had it up.
I think it,
It was well, it was a poll. The Village Voice, best film in the 90s, and was described by critics as the scariest film of the year.
which is really interesting because they're using it in a different context than we would think, right? Because they're not calling it a horror movie necessarily. It's not, the concept is scary in a different way. It's
Mm-hmm.
more um it's more of a realistic scary. Like the concept of this is scary, the idea of it is scary,
Mm-hmm.
the very idea that, you know, we could become sensitive to modern living is, or this modern world is scary. Um
Yeah.
and you could argue that the fast paced modern society is scary. So
Yeah. Excuse me. Yeah, I would agree.
I think they're being a little pretentious and hyperbolic with their poll, but that's fine.
Yeah, I would agree. You know, that it's scary in the sense that it is very, the realism is very real. You know, the thing that's tormenting Carol isn't, you know, a monster. It isn't, you know, a demon or a ghost. You know, it's something that could be very tangible, you know, and something that, like I said at the top of the show, that, you know, us in modern audiences 30 years after this movie, we lived through,
yeah,
you know,
that's true.
an actual, you know, a pandemic, where you didn't know if you were going to get it or if you may not get it, or,
which
you know,
does,
so
I mean, which does make the movie a little bit more scary, or a little bit more topical.
Yeah, Annie agrees.
that was Abby, but yeah,
It was Abby. Okay.
that was Ebenezer. Oh, poor guy. Yeah, I think he was recently asked about the movie, and he did mention COVID, and he mentioned that, you know, it's a good. It's kind of like Contagion. How Contagion is so topical now, post COVID, and a lot of stuff they got right. So that's a fun movie. We should do that one later.
Guys, you know what? Just skip this. Go watch Contagion.
Contagion's great.
Yeah. Yeah, man, it is very interesting, and again, like I said, I love the movie, because I'd been wanting to see more Todd Haynes films, because I'd heard so much, you know, how critically acclaimed they are, and how his writing is always so very tight and very, very succinct. So I was like, you know, good way to jump in with his second film.
Yeah.
Yeah. His second film that is so critically acclaimed that it resonates with audiences 30 years later.
That's right.
Yeah. Well, buddy, with that being said, are you ready to wrap up?
I am. Yes. Yeah. If you don't succeed, try again. Because this second go around, I appreciated the film way more. So, I'm glad you picked this one. I'm glad I got to see it again. Even though, again, the first time it's like I never saw it at all. It was a long time ago, and I was, I guess, barely paying attention. So, what are you gonna do? Job. But I loved it. I really appreciated it this go around. So, yeah.
Nice. Well, buddy, with that being said, what are we talking about next week?
Well, it's a good question. So, okay. Our wives are gonna hate us.
Okay.
Because I feel like, you know, it's October. Let's just go for it. I feel like, you know, and you were gonna laugh because you just told me, and it's too bad.
Oh my god.
You just, and I had already picked it, and so I'm like, it's whatever. So next week, we are going to be discussing Alex Garland's film Men. You had just told me before we started, like, oh yeah, I had this on my list for the Halloween movies that we were going to watch together, you and Ashley. And I was like, you were like, Ashley's not going to like Men. So you took it off. And it was already on my list. And I had already picked, I was like, you know what? we picked this really interesting, slow burn movie this week, and it's scary in a really interesting, kind of pretentious way. Let's do something that's sort of creepy and eerie and malevolent in a new way. And again, something that's really we're gonna have to dive into and discuss. But again, it's kind of spooky and kind of creepy. So I was like, it's good for now. Let's just, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. So everyone, like Jeremy said, I had put this movie on a Halloween movie list that my wife and I we do every year. And initially, I was like, you know what? Yeah, she's gonna really enjoy this. And then after kind of thinking about it, I was like, you know what? Actually, I don't think she will like this very much. I'm going to switch it out.
Oops.
But honestly, man, you know what? I'm excited. We took our buddy Alex to go see this for his birthday, and the three of us, I remember, we all liked it, but we were all like, "What does it mean, though?"
Yeah, what is it? What does it all mean? It's it's high concept for sure, and which I appreciated, and I loved it. I thought it was so interesting and so different and so unique, and not what I was expecting at all. I think Alex Garland is a very unique filmmaker in the way he tells his stories, and I like the stories that he tends to tell. And those of you who are like, well, I'm not really into Ex Machina, I don't care about that, I don't care about Annihilation, who cares? Men's not for me, and I don't have time to sit and watch Devs. He also wrote 28 Days Later, so
Yeah.
That's for everybody. So I think I've seen everything he's done. And Civil War just came out not too long ago, which I liked. It's not my favorite, but I liked it.
Yeah. I feel like with Men, I'm definitely gonna have to do a little bit more digging and research, and
definitely.
I still have so many questions. 2 years later, the movie's been out for 2 years, and I'm still just like, what does it mean?
What is the significance of any of it? Now, I will say that I like it when we pick a movie that we've both seen, or that at least I've seen, because I can start looking stuff up immediately, where if it's something I've never seen before, I have to wait until I've seen it, and then I can start looking stuff up, so I have a little less time. Here I'm just like, oh, cool, I can just dive right in. And then watch it again later in the week. But yeah, this is going to take some doing. I think that it's got a lot to do with folklore of the specific area that it is that it's set, which is really interesting. Folklore and folk horror, that stuff's kind of cool. And so yeah, it'll be fun. I'm excited.
Yeah. Before we end the episode real quick, I just want to give a little tease. I'm not going to say what. I just want to tell everyone that after we do Men, the following episode is going to be really cool. It's going to be our Halloween special, which was funny because I think we agreed that we would never do one again. But you know what? We both had a stroke of genius, and we were like, you know what? We have to.
Okay, to be fair, our last Halloween special, we did Evil Dead and Evil Dead 2. I had said to myself after that, like, I gotta quit drinking during these movies because I get, because I quit really paying attention. I definitely stopped taking notes. And like for the first Evil Dead, I was pretty tipsy watching the first Evil Dead, and so I kind of half-assed it, and I should. That's on me. Have I stopped doing that? Yes, I've had a baby since then. Did I recently stop doing it because I have a baby now? Yes, I was pretty tipsy throughout a couple of these, actually. But that's over. I'm going through these, just on the straight and narrow. No more drinking while watching these movies.
Yeah,
so I can do a good job. So I can pay attention and write notes and.
But yeah, I just want to give everyone a little 2-week tease for our Halloween special, because technically it'll be my pick, and it's gonna be interesting. It's gonna be something we've never done before.
I am very.
And again, I don't want to say it yet. We'll wait till next week after we do Men, and then of course that's when we'll tell everyone what we're doing. But yeah, just get everyone excited for also Men, but also what's coming after Men. So
yeah,
but. All right, everyone. Well, we hope you enjoyed this episode on Safe, and we will see you next week for Men.